You've probably heard of it. Heck, you've probably seen it on a bookshelf somewhere. We're talking about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that absolutely exploded onto the scene and really changed how millions of people thought about money. It tapped right into that dot-com era vibe, this hunger for a new way to get wealthy that wasn't just the old 9 to 5 grind. And when I say it exploded, I mean it. Since it first came out back in '97, we're talking over 32 million copies sold. That is just a staggering number. It puts it right up there with the best-selling personal finance books of all time. But the big question we're all asking now is, does the advice actually hold up? So the whole hook of the book, right? It's this super simple story about Robert Kiyosaki getting advice from his two dads. His real dad, his poor dad, was a smart, highly educated guy who always struggled financially. And then there was his rich dad, his best friend's father, who dropped out in the 8th grade but became a millionaire. The genius here is how it frames everything. It's not just about what you know about money, it's about your whole mindset. You've got one dad saying, "I can't afford it," and the other asking, "Okay, how can I afford it?" All right, so here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to kick things off with that core rich dad philosophy that just hooked everybody. Then, oh yeah, we're diving straight into the controversy and the critics, because there are a lot of them. We'll do our best to separate fact from fiction, and then wrap it all up with what you should really take away from this book today. Okay, so what was this huge idea that got millions of people so fired up? Well, it really all starts with just a massive shift in how you even think about the whole idea of wealth. This right here, this is the absolute foundation of the entire book. Kiyosaki just boils everything down to this one incredibly simple idea. You have to know the difference between an asset and a liability. That's it. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. It's so powerful because it's so simple. And here's the kicker. Kiyosaki says the rich spend their lives buying assets, while the rest of us, we buy liabilities that we think are assets. And this is where he starts to really shake things up. The biggest sacred cow he goes after? Your house. Rich Dad's whole argument is that your home is not an asset. It's a liability. Why? Because every single month it's taking money out of your pocket for the mortgage, for taxes, for repairs. I mean, for millions of people raised on the American dream, hearing that was, well, it was a bombshell. Then he takes it a step further with something he calls the cash flow quadrant. The idea is pretty simple. Everybody's income comes from one of these 4 boxes. Over on the left, you've got employees and self-employed folks. You're basically trading your time for money. On the right, you've got business owners who own systems that make money and investors who have their money working for them. The whole goal of the Rich Dad philosophy is to get yourself from the left side of this quadrant over to the right. And it all boils down to this one central idea. It's not about just getting a bigger paycheck. It's about owning things, assets, like a business or rental properties that make you money whether you're actively working or not. You want your money to start having babies and making more money even when you're asleep. And his last big piece of advice is pretty interesting. He says, when you're starting out, choose a job for what you'll learn, not just for the salary. The goal is to build your financial IQ by learning a little bit about a lot of things: sales, marketing, accounting, you name it. That way, you'll be able to spot opportunities that everyone else just walks right past. Okay, but it's not all sunshine and roses. As huge as this book became, it has also faced a storm of criticism over the years. So let's flip the coin and take a good hard look at the other side of this story. So you have to ask the big question: is this mega bestseller, this book that so many people treat like a financial Bible, actually giving out bad advice? Maybe even dangerous advice? And if you want to find a critic, you don't have to look far. Meet John T. Reed. As you can see, he doesn't pull any punches. He basically argues that the book isn't just a little bit wrong, it's actually harmful. And look, Reed doesn't just have one little complaint. He wrote this incredibly detailed takedown of the entire thing. He claims it's just riddled with bad advice, factual mistakes, and stories that are just too good to be true. He challenges Kiyosaki's credentials, his background, everything. That the biggest bombshell he drops, that rich dad, the entire character at the heart of the book, was totally made up. Yeah, that's a huge accusation, right? That the main character is just fiction. It's followed Kiyosaki around for years. So let's play detective for a minute and see if we can figure this out. You know, for the longest time, Kiyosaki was super cagey about it. When reporters would press him, he'd say stuff like, "Is Harry Potter real? Just think of Rich Dad like Harry Potter, which, didn't exactly help his case with the critics. It just made them more certain he was a complete fabrication. But then fast forward to 2009, and this pops up. It's from an obituary for a successful hotel owner in Hawaii named Richard Kimi. And right there in the text, his son Alan says that Kiyosaki based the Rich Dad character on his dad. Kiyosaki later confirmed it. So it seems like while the stories in the book might be simplified parables, the inspiration for the character was a real guy.
Okay, so maybe Rich Dad was inspired by a real person. Fair enough. But that still leaves the million-dollar question. Does the actual advice in the book work today, in an economy like 2026's?
Well, when you look at it with fresh eyes, a few things stand out. First, that intense focus on real estate can feel pretty dated. Some of those strategies are a lot riskier now. Second, a lot of people feel it has this get-rich-quick vibe that glosses over just how much work and risk is involved, something that really hurt a lot of people in the 2008 housing crisis. So the modern view is to treat the book more like a parable. It's an amazing tool for getting your head in the right space, but it's not a step-by-step investment manual. All right, so we've been through the philosophy, the massive success, the fierce controversy. What's the final verdict? What's the real takeaway from Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Maybe the best way to think about it is that Rich Dad offers one playbook for wealth. It's not the only playbook. Kiyosaki's path is aggressive. It's about using leverage, being an entrepreneur, taking risks. But there's another classic path, from a book like The Richest Man in Babylon, which is all about saving steadily, keeping your expenses low, and being very, very cautious. Neither one is right or wrong. They're just different journeys. And maybe that's the real legacy of the book. It might not be the specific advice about real estate. It's the fact that it got millions of people to stop and actually think about their money for the very first time. It made them question everything they've been taught. And for a lot of people, that was the first step toward actually taking control of their financial lives. And that really leaves us with one last thought. The book is great because it forces you to figure out what you truly believe about money and work and risk. Kiyosaki gave you his definition of wealth, but the book kind of pushes you to figure out your own. So I'll just leave you with this. What's your definition of a rich life?